Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm going to try to keep this video short. I'm probably going to fail. I've actually tried to redo this about 10 or 20 times. So at this point, I've just said I'm not going to redo it if I think I got something wrong because I'm never going to wind up getting it out there. Long story short, I want to try to get right to repair passed. Right to repair, which is something that I speak about in this video, is the idea that you should not be stuck only going to the dealer if something goes wrong with your product. You should not be stuck going to the dealer for basic stuff, whether it is a dishwasher, cell phone, laptop, tractor, car, any of that stuff. And this is something that for the past 7 years, I have completely failed on. I have not moved the ball forward even a tiny bit. I've gotten 1.5 million subscribers. I've shown up at legislatures dozens of times, and I have recorded them and uploaded them to this channel on this Lobbying at Legislature playlist that you can see, and I have horribly failed for many different devices. You're still not able to get a schematic, even if you're willing to pay for it, even if you're willing to get authorized by the manufacturer. You're still not able to buy chipsets for them, even if you become authorized by the manufacturer, even if you have money to pay for them. They go out of their way to make it so that you're either paying these inflated rates to get it fixed by the manufacturer, which are often the cost of a new one, or buy a new one. I have failed at pushing back against this. And a lot of you have asked, why don't I figure out what the automotive right to repair people did and just copy them? That's a great idea. So, as I've said on this channel, there was an automotive right to repair bill that passed in 2012, which is why you can still have an independent mechanic work on your car rather than being stuck going to the dealer. This ensured that they were able to continue to get access to what they need so that they can actually fix your car. And this is something that passed in 2012. There was a loophole for this that got closed in 2020. So in 2012, they passed automotive right to repair. In 2020, they were able to get a loophole closed so that they weren't able to lock you out by moving everything to wireless. Now, they used a different procedure to get this passed than what I'm trying to do. What I've been trying to do is show up at legislatures like this and ask the politician, excuse me, sir, it looks like a majority of your constituents would like right to repair pass so that they don't get abused by monopolies and can continue to own their products. Would you be open to considering this legislation that has the broad support of everyone who showed up here and your constituents? No. I mean, that's pretty much what the past 7 years of my life have been, and you could that's the abridged version of all of these videos here. You have politicians that stare at their phone. You have politicians that literally in Nebraska laughed us out of the room. You have politicians that say, okay, we'll consider it, and then 2 years later it's crickets. What they did in Massachusetts was something that's really revolutionary. What they did is they had it put on as a direct ballot initiative. What a direct ballot initiative means is that we're not waiting for politicians to get their heads out of their ass and do what their constituents want them to do. You get to decide. So what they did here is they put this to a vote among normal people in Massachusetts, and they won about 75 to 23 if I'm rounding over there. This means that when you're voting, instead of voting for a representative and then praying that they actually do what you want, you just vote for what you want. So when you have your ballot and you're going to vote, it's like, okay, who do I want to be president? Biden or Trump? Okay, who do I want to be senator? This person or that person? All right, who do I want to be my attorney or whatever, district attorney or something like that? You can vote there. Okay, right to repair, yes or no? But this bypasses the lobbying, it bypasses the corruption, it bypasses speaking to politicians that, I shit you not, in Maine, admitted to us while we were trying to explain the difference between a schematic and source code that they did not even know how to get into their government email. One of the people who showed up said, I'll help you get into that government. He hasn't logged into his government email since he's been elected because he can't figure out how. It bypasses that. It bypasses the corruption, it bypasses the aggravation, it bypasses the indifference of those who were elected and paid a salary out of our tax dollars to represent us. It's a beautiful thing. Here's the thing, regardless of whether or not I agree with you when it comes to politics, your opinions on politics could be literally the polar opposite of mine. I would still trust average everyday people who completely disagree with me on everything to vote on issues like this than I would actual politicians. Because at the end of the day, at least they care about doing what is best for their family and for the country versus just for one person who's probably indifferent or just paid off at that point. And what I think would be really amazing, and what a lot of you have asked, is why don't you just figure out how to do a direct ballot? Then you won't have to go to legislatures and get laughed at anymore and try to convince politicians that don't know how to set up their email that a source code is different from a schematic. Great. Because at the end of the day, as I've said, I trust all of you, even if you disagree with me on virtually everything, more than I trust politicians to do jack shit. So how do I get on the ballot? Well, I decided to start an organization that is dedicated to moving right to repair forward as a cultural movement, legally, and also to help out repair shops with things that they need help with. And one of the things that I wanted to start with was contacting the people that got this passed and asking, how'd you do it? Because all of you have been saying, listen, they already passed it. Why don't you figure out what they did? So I figured out who was responsible for this, did a little bit of digging, got some contact information, got a meeting, and they told me what they did. Direct ballot initiative, it's a simple thing. It's just insanely expensive. And they reiterated what I already knew, that when you go through the legislative process, it really only requires a very, very teeny tiny amount of doubt in order to ensure that a bill gets shelved forever, even if you're right. With a direct ballot initiative, you have to convince normal people. And if more people agree with the bill, then you can get it passed. It's a way to bypass all of that so that you don't have to wait 30 to 50 years to get a piece of legislation passed. And the way you do it, if you got to get about 80,000 signatures or something like that, after you get those signatures, then it's going to be a very expensive process of grassroots advocacy. So first you got to pay to have a bill written up, then you have to pay to get the 80,000 or so signatures. After that, you're going to have to pay for polling and advertisements. So one of the things I remember going over when this first came out were just the bullshit commercials. It was cool because the people I spoke to actually, they didn't recognize me immediately, but then they knew me from these videos that I had done on the BS commercials. So there were these commercials that got done where they were acting like if right to repair passed, or if independent mechanics can fix your car, you're going to get beaten and raped in a parking lot. Absolute insane shit. So this is one of the ads.
Data stored in your vehicle. Domestic violence advocates say a sexual predator could use the data to stalk their victims, pinpoint exactly where you are, whether you are alone, even take control of your vehicle.
You see where this stupid shit is going. So they said that there's going to be all sorts of horrible ads run against this to ensure that people vote no on right to repair. So you're going to have to constantly do polling to figure out why people are concerned about that question, and what are people's specific concerns that are causing them to vote no. What do they believe is the case as a result of bullshit ads like this? And then you're going to have to put out your own ads and specifically target it to the specific areas of people that believe the opposite of what you believe to be correct. This is going to be incredibly expensive and incredibly painful. Your opposition, they said, is probably going to lie about you, because even if they post something that's fundamentally false, they're not going to get in trouble for it for 3 to 6 to 9 months, and by then they're just going to get a slap on the wrist fine, which is by then you've already lost the election, so it doesn't really even matter. You're going to have to stay on top of this in all these different areas, and at the cost of the constant polling, the cost of getting all these signatures, and the cost of going forward with a direct ballot measure that's genuinely going to be successful. And their experience from the ones that they've passed is going to be in the range of $5 to $20 million. Now, the first thing that I asked is, okay, well, it's 2021. We have Reddit, we have YouTube, there's TikTok, there's memes, there's all these different ways of being able to get your voice heard and get a message out there that are not, advertising on CNBC or Days of Our Lives. That's very expensive advertising, and that type of advertising is the olden days of advertising. Isn't there a way that this could be done more affordably if I were to try and leverage the YouTube following that I have of 1.5 million people? Is there a way that I could get this done? Is there a way that I can attract enough media attention through my pursuits if I try to do this without $5 to $20 million that I can somehow find a cheaper way to do the polling or advertise online or go door to door or whatever? And they were very, very polite and kind, and they said, you do that, you're going to be pretty much pissing your money away. It's not going to work. I wouldn't even want to be a part of it because you're going to wind up, I'd rather you either do it or you don't. But the way they explained is pretty much if I take, let's say, $500K or $1 million from you and I know it's not going to get passed, I'm not going to suggest that you do that. You're most likely going to fail. You are going to fail pretty much. And a small part of me walked away from that discussion thinking, I know, but I still want to try. Like I refuse, a part of my brain refuses to believe that in 2021, I need that much of a budget to do polling, PR, advertising, and advocacy. And I have had people reach out to me and say, I would be open to giving $500,000 or $1 million. I like what you're doing, keep doing it. But even that's not even remotely close to 5 to 20 million. Now, what happens here is if, let's say I try to go the direct ballot route, and I don't do it properly. And because I didn't do it properly, it gets voted out. I get a no vote. I think there winds up being a moratorium on the amount of time before I can do it again. So let's say I sit this session out. I don't have 5 to 20 million bucks. I can't do it in 2022. But let's say someone comes along with 5 to 20 million bucks in 2024. I can do it in 2024. But if I fail in 2021 and 2022, there's a moratorium to where now you have to wait until 2026 or 2028 to get it done, and you're truly screwed. So I'm kind of weighing this in my head. Like, on one hand, I'd feel bad if I tried to do it and I failed, because then you have to wait 6 years. But at the same time, I don't see anybody coming along with 5 to 20 million dollars that's going to help me out anytime soon. Like, it's not like, oh, I have 100,000 in my bank account now, and 1 year from now I'll have 5 or 20 million. Like, that's not how this works. I'm probably not going to have 5 to 20 million dollars throughout the course of my natural life. That's not something that's going to be in the cards for me. And further, I genuinely question if this industry is still going to exist by 2024 or 2025. You see how many companies are serializing parts and components. You see what they're doing with tractors. You see what they're doing with chipsets, where I go to the vendor and I say, I'd like to buy 1,000 of this chip, and they say, sorry, we can't sell it to you. The manufacturer of the product said that we can't sell this to you. Is this even going to be an industry by then if I wait? Would it be best if I genuinely put my best effort in to get a direct ballot initiative passed and kind of tried to record it for all of you? Because one thing that I noticed with this channel is that when I do repair videos and stuff like that, like, genuinely nobody gives a fuck. Like, once a month I'll get some virtue signaling comments saying, I'm unsubscribing, I was here for board repair videos. And it's like, no, you're not. Every time I do one of those, they get like 3,000 or 5,000 views in a channel with 1.5 million subscribers. But when there's a story arc to follow, people seem to actually be interested. Like last year with Yuchi and the contractor. That got 10 times the viewership of any of my normal videos. People were just excited. Or when I was doing the real estate series where I was looking for a new place, people wanted to check in to see what was going on. It was kind of like a reality show, and people really got into that. And what I'm thinking to myself right now, what if I make the process of trying to get a direct ballot initiative passed into a television series, the same way that I did that people actually want to watch? And what if the viewership that I get as a result of that winds up creating the press buzz that I need in order to get on TV in those areas, to get in the newspaper in those areas, so that voters actually know about it as an issue without me spending $5 to $20 million, to where I'll be able to poll normal people in an organic way, where I'm going door to door, or I'm and asking people in a state, what do you think of this? Do you think this is passable? Like, if I kind of can turn that into a story, and then I can turn the channel into the story of the year and a half of my life that I spend trying to get this passed, is it possible that I could generate enough buzz and attention that I can actually get some of that attention and maybe access to polling professionals that would typically cost in the $5 to $20 million area? Because one thing you notice, if you look at Massachusetts question 1, you look at this page on Ballotopedia here, and I'm just going to show you the amount of money that went into this. So when you see the people that opposed it, they spent a lot of money. This is like 26 million. You have General Motors putting in 5 million, Toyota putting in 4.5, Ford putting in 4.4 million. By the way, very American thing to do is deny people the ability to fix their own car. Thumbs up Ford. American Honda Motor Company put in 2.9 million. Nissan put in 2.4 million. Your tax dollars bailed out a company that's now using their money to lobby against your ability to fix the fucking half-ass car that they built for you. So you could see here that they all gave money. However, the pro right to repair side also had $24 million. They had, from Auto Care Association, $4.5 million. Coalition of Automotive Repair Equality, $4.1 million. AutoZone, $3 million. Advanced Auto Parts, $3 million. Genuine Parts Company, $3 million. O'Reilly Auto Parts, $3 million. So it's not like, this wasn't really that as much of a David and Goliath as people would think. It's not like, the giant auto manufacturers versus the teeny tiny mechanics. They had parts vendors for these devices. For these cars. I called it devices. They had parts vendors for these cars willing to spend $3, $4, $5 million in pursuit of getting this passed. They did not get this passed, with a couple of $100,000 or even $1 million. So I'm kind of at a crossroads. Like my My instinct is to try and get this passed regardless of whether I actually have a budget for it, and to kind of try and turn the story into how I go about getting this passed, moving to a state, going through the entire legislative process, the ups and the downs and the excitement and all of it, like trying to turn that into the theme of the channel, and seeing if that gains some buzz and traction as a result of it being interesting, to the point where I don't really need $5 or $10 million for ads, because people are watching my channel more than they are the commercials on television. And then they're telling their family members about it when it actually comes up for a vote, so that they all vote yes on it. A part of me genuinely refuses to believe that I need $5 to $20 million in order to do this. Their advice was, don't take donations from normal people, don't take donations from small repair shops or end users, because if you do take their money, A, it's not going to be enough, and B, if you fail, they're going to be pissed off at you. What you could do is you could find the large parts companies or the large repair companies in your industry that actually have millions of dollars that they could use and pay for something like this. They said, find the O'Reilly or find the AutoZone of your business and then get them to donate, and then use their money to go on the direct ballot. But I'm kind of at a loss for whether or not there are companies in this business that just have like $1 or $3 or $4 million. Again, like the chances of me going out to Mobile Centrics or Injured Gadgets or Union Repair or Asset Genie with my cup out going, I'd like to get right to repair past. Hey, listen, I know if you give me money, I can win. I don't see how that's going to work. They were able to do it. They were able to accomplish it. They were able to get AutoZone and AutoCare and O'Reilly Auto Parts and all these companies to just write them checks for $3 to $5 million to try and get this passed. But I don't really know how I could go about raising that money. I don't know how to do that. If I knew how to raise $5 to $20 million for something, I probably would have done it by now. I'm really kind of wondering how I could go about doing something like this, or should I try and come up with a framework to get this passed over the next year and a half, even if I don't have that amount of money? What can I do? What can the internet accomplish? What can Reddit, YouTube, social media, and just what can we do that even 10 years ago would have been considered insane? And would it be considered insane now? I wonder. I really do. And I'm like, a part of me really does kind of want to spend the next year and a half of my life proving wrong the idea that you need $5 to $20 million to do this. Because the responsible thing to do would be to wait until you have $5 to $20 million. But I'm never going to have $5 to $20 million. That's just not in the cards. So I think the best thing to do would be to do something and see what happens. Again, I'm not an expert at this. This is not my this is not my getting something on the ballot on for direct ballot, knocking on every single door in a state, and then repeatedly doing that to figure out what people's concerns are, if you're knocking on doors, how to not get people to slam the door in your face and say GTFO, salesman or whatever. I don't know how to do that. But I'm kind of curious if it will be fun to find out, and I'm also curious if it will be worth doing that rather than doing nothing. I'm not a person that's good at accepting that there's nothing you can do. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at sitting on the sidelines. I'm not good at being told, sorry, you have to wait until you get X. I mean, if I did that, I really, on one hand, I see where that point comes from, which is if you fail, then you fuck it up for anybody else to be able to try for 4 to 6 years. But I don't see anybody else really trying to do that kind of thing. And I'm not the type of person that's going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that, unless you're authorized by the manufacturer, you can't fix a motherboard. I mean, really, my entire business is based on the concept that waiting until everything is perfect to do it is not going to get you anywhere. I mean, if I did that with my own life, I wouldn't get anywhere. And at this point, I kind of think I'm really fishing for some confirmation bias from the audience, but I really don't see what the alternative is. What is the alternative? The only alternative to trying to dedicate my next year and a half to 2 years of my life to getting this passed as a full-time job and actually hitting the road, meeting with people, whether it's in colleges, clubs, political forums, literally knocking door to door to try to get signatures. The alternative to that is to, wait to get $5 or $20 million bucks. And that's just not something that's going to happen. So for all of you who have been saying, try to get this push as a direct ballot initiative. Can you see if you can get it pushed as a direct ballot initiative? Why don't you get a direct ballot initiative? I could really use your feedback at this point in time. What would you do? What should I do? What do you think I'm capable of doing? Because again, doing nothing, that's just not one of the things that's in the cards for me. So that's about it for today. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.